President Trump demands Iran's unconditional surrender, labeling its leader an easy target. While U.S. military assets are mobilizing in the Middle East, Trump considers potential military action against Iran's nuclear sites. Amid escalating tensions, Iran continues missile attacks on Israel, raising concerns about U.S. involvement in the conflict and the regime's stability. What are the implications of Trump's threats to Iran? How is the U.S. military responding to the conflict? What could happen if Iran's regime collapses? Donald Trump has called for Iran's unconditional surrender amidst rising tensions and military movements in the Middle East. The situation suggests a potential escalation in U.S. involvement in the ongoing conflict. With U.S. fighter jets en route to the Middle East, the situation escalates, prompting speculation about a direct U.S. military response in the conflict between Israel and Iran. Trump's remarks about Iran's supreme leader highlight his aggressive stance while also indicating restraint regarding direct military action. This duality raises questions about U.S. strategy. The evolving conflict has led to increased military support for Israel from the U.S., including assistance in intercepting missiles, showcasing America's commitment to its ally. The U.S. military is mobilizing assets in the Middle East amid tensions over Iran's nuclear capabilities. This indicates a potential escalation in its involvement in regional conflicts. The presence of KC-135 tanker aircraft suggests preparations for intensive military operations, highlighting a strategic shift in U.S. military posture in the region. Israel's desire for U.S. support in striking Iran's nuclear sites reflects the growing urgency to address perceived threats posed by Iran's nuclear ambitions. Donald Trump's consideration of military action underscores the precarious balance between diplomatic engagement and potential military escalation in U.S.-Iran relations. Donald Trump remains steadfast in his opposition to Iran acquiring nuclear weapons, despite his preference for America not to engage in foreign conflicts. His belief is that military action may become necessary if negotiations fail. Trump's prior campaign emphasized an America-first approach, appealing to voters who were weary of foreign entanglements. This stance has garnered significant support among his congressional allies. Israel's recent military strikes on Iran aim to preemptively disrupt its nuclear program, targeting facilities and military assets across the country. This action showcases Israel's proactive stance in regional security. The urgency of the situation is reflected in the massive evacuation from Tehran, as citizens respond to warnings and escalating tensions. This exodus highlights the growing fears among the Iranian populace. Residents in Tehran are facing severe challenges as they choose to stay amidst the turmoil caused by attacks. Their resilience is evident as they attempt to maintain normalcy and support each other. Many individuals express a strong connection to their home despite dissatisfaction with the Islamic Republic, emphasizing the importance of community and routine. Their determination to stay provides hope. The ongoing conflict has severely impacted essential services, with damage to water facilities and cash shortages at ATMs complicating daily life for those who remain. Survival becomes increasingly challenging. The situation is exacerbated by the infiltration of foreign adversaries, with intelligence reports highlighting threats like drone factories. Civilians bear the brunt of these escalated hostilities. The current situation in Iran suggests a potential regime change, influenced by President Trump's statements and military actions. The U.S. aims for a weakened Islamic regime without its nuclear capabilities. The possibility of regime collapse in Iran hinges on the supreme leader's willingness to surrender to U.S. demands. This may provoke further military action if he resists. British military jets have been deployed to Cyprus to support UK interests, reflecting the broader military engagement in the region amidst rising tensions. This move underscores international concerns over Iran's activities. The G7 summit discussions indicate a unified concern regarding Iran's nuclear program and the regional implications of potential conflict. Leaders are contemplating the need for a change in Iran's regime. The UK Prime Minister emphasizes the importance of de-escalating international conflicts to mitigate their economic impact on domestic citizens. He acknowledges concerns about rising living costs due to global tensions. The Prime Minister expresses no support for the Iranian regime and recognizes the potential for public uprisings against it. He focuses on the need for peaceful solutions. He highlights the direct repercussions of global conflicts, referencing the Ukraine situation and its effect on energy costs and living expenses for UK citizens. The ongoing military tensions in the Middle East, particularly between Israel and Iran, are causing significant regional instability and raising questions about international involvement.
President Trump has called on Iran for unconditional surrender. In a flurry of posts on his social media this afternoon, Donald Trump called Iran's supreme leader an easy target, but said that the US was not going to kill him, at least not yet. US fighter jets are understood to be on their way to the Middle East as speculation grows that the US could become directly involved in the war between Israel and Iran. Tonight, Donald Trump has met his national security team to decide America's next move. Well, this is Tel Aviv tonight. Iran has fired more missiles into Israel, but there are no reports so far of any impacts. As millions flee Tehran today, we will ask if the US is about to get involved in the war and whether the regime in Iran could be about to fall. But first, here's Tom Bateman with the latest from Washington.
Donald Trump's nighttime dash back to Washington unleashed more uncertainty on a region at war and a frenzy of questions asked at 40,000 feet. First, what about French President Macron's remark about an Israel-Iran ceasefire plan?
Look at it better than ceasefire. We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy, but he doesn't get it right too often. But we're looking for better than a ceasefire.
The president then turned to an ultimatum for Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, saying he was an easy target. "We're not going to take him out, kill, at least not for now," he posted. "But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin." In another post, Mr. Trump said he expected unconditional surrender. The US is already helping Israel shoot down incoming missiles as Iran retaliates to Israel's attacks. But so far, Washington has said its role is limited to that. Mr. Trump has veered between threats to Tehran and highlighting that the US isn't involved. But today's sudden shift has led to mounting speculation over what's coming next. Over the past 3 days, at least 30 US military planes have been moved from bases in America to Europe. They are all KC-135 tanker aircraft used to refuel fighter jets and bombers. These pictures taken in Suffolk today appear to show an aerial refueling tanker accompanied by 4 fighter jets. One military expert told the BBC the flights were highly unusual and suggestive of contingency plans to support intensive combat operations in the Middle East. US officials are keeping their options open.
We believe that Iran, as President has said from the beginning, should not have a nuclear weapon. That position hasn't changed. They can give it up peacefully. That position hasn't changed. And as a result, right now, we've got assets in the region and we're going to defend them.
Israel wants these to join in its strikes. American B-2 stealth bombers, planes it doesn't have. These could be used to strike Iran's uranium enrichment site at Fordow. Hidden deep underground, it has long been a key target for the Israelis. But only the US is thought to have the bomb needed, the massive ordnance penetrator, to destroy it, a factor that has added to the pressure Israel's leader has put on the president. But Mr. Trump has also been pushing his desire for a deal with Iran. He still said he hasn't ruled out sending his envoy Steve Witkoff to meet the Iranians. How much of this manoeuvring is meant to force Tehran's hand as opposed to a planned US action is so far known only to Mr. Trump and his closest advisors. But as the world waits, America's military might is on the move. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Washington.
Let's speak to our North America editor, Sarah Smith, at the White House. So could the United States be about to get directly involved in this war?
Well, after a meeting with his top advisors in the Situation Room that lasted almost an hour and a half this afternoon and broke up recently, US officials are saying that Donald Trump is considering joining Israel in those attacks on Iranian nuclear sites. But it's pretty clear his top advisors are not agreed upon this. And there are, of course, lots of reasons for America not to get involved in this. They could easily get dragged into a wider conflict in the Middle East, which is absolutely the last thing Donald Trump wants to get involved in. Remember, he campaigned for election saying that he would put America first and not get involved in any foreign wars. That was a very popular message, and some of his most vocal supporters in Congress are also urging him not to do this. But there's one thing Donald Trump has always been absolutely consistent about and absolutely unequivocal on, and that is him saying Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. And he is said to believe that they are now very close to achieving that, so he could be talked into taking some kind of action possibly. He had wanted to do a deal with Iran to stop them from developing nuclear weapons, and there were negotiations and talks about that. Because remember, Donald Trump sees himself as a deal maker supreme, and he likes to look at himself as a peacemaker as well. But he set a 60-day deadline on those talks, and that deadline came and went last week without any kind of agreement. So now he is deeply concerned that Iran are not serious about doing a deal, that they have just been stringing him along. So although he might return to negotiations if they offered it, he will feel his hand is much strengthened if there is then a credible threat of military action coming from the United States as well as from Israel.
Sarah Smith, thank you. Well, Israel launched its first strikes on Iran 5 days ago on Friday in what it described as a preemptive offensive to neutralize Iran's nuclear program. Targets included nuclear facilities at Isfahan, Natanz and Arak. Oil depots and gas refineries across the country have also been targeted, and air defence systems, military bases and missile launch sites have been struck. Well, the BBC is not allowed to broadcast from inside Iran, but our colleagues in BBC Persian are keeping across the situation there. Siavash Arlan has this report.
Evacuating a city of 10 million is no easy task. Even before President Trump's evacuation warning, millions were fleeing the Iranian capital. Now the roads out of Tehran are choked with traffic. Scenes reminiscent of bank holidays, but this is a desperate goodbye. On the road, this driver comes across these men. Confused at first, he realized they are addicts who have fled a rehab center damaged by the attacks. Back in Tehran, the subway, normally bustling with commuters, rarely looks like this. One Tehran resident who wishes to remain anonymous told us why he is staying.
Even though I hate the Islamic Republic, I'm staying in my home. I'm staying in my city. I'll try to stick to my routines. I'll try to find a cafe that's open and go there. If I see a couple people on the street, I'll smile at them, try to lift their spirits. I'll call my friends more often, support them, make them feel better. I think right now we have no one but each other, not Benjamin Netanyahu and not Israel. They certainly don't care about us, and neither does the Islamic Republic.
For those who chose to stay, using essential services can be challenging. Israeli strikes damaged water installations in affluent northern Tehran, while ATMs ran out of cash. And these are the studios of Iranian state TV. This is not just bombardments and missile attacks. Iran is fighting the enemy on its own soil. Israel has been infiltrating the country at all levels. Car bombs have been detonating, and the Iranian intelligence says it has discovered a number of enemy drone factories inside the country. And civilians are paying the price. This is Tehran's Red Crescent, desperately hoping to find survivors under the rubble. Among the lost are nurses, skaters, artists, lives cut short.
Buildings are being attacked that are residential.
Our colleague pressed Israel's UN ambassador on civilian casualties.
We will do everything we can to minimize civilian casualties, but as you said, it's a war, and we have seen what happened in our cities, so we will continue to target the military sites in Iran.
Few in Washington and Tel Aviv are talking publicly about what happens if the regime collapses. Iranians have been documenting how their lives are changing. President Trump said he wants to see their country prosper. Fewer will be willing to believe him today than they were just 5 days ago.
Siavash is with me now. Extraordinary scenes there from Iran, from Tehran just emptying out. Could the regime be about to fall?
That can be a very distinct possibility. I think at this point it really depends on the regime itself. Judging from what President Trump is saying, judging on the targeting of Israel, targeting many military centers rather than political institutions like the parliament or the government. Perhaps the US and Israel are not so much after regime change, but after, as President Trump said, total capitulation, total surrender, total humiliation of the Islamic regime. What they wish to have is a weakened Islamic regime without its nuclear program, unless it refuses to surrender, unless the supreme leader refuses to surrender. Judging again by what President Trump is saying, that's when the U.S. may choose to strike the supreme leader and eliminate him. After that, obviously, the collapse of the regime will be a given.
Siavash Adlam, thank you. Well, more British military jets have been sent to Cyprus to bolster UK interests in the region. That's been confirmed today by the Defence Secretary John Healey. And at the G7 summit in Canada, world leaders have been left guessing what President Trump may do next. Our political editor Chris Mason has been at the summit and has been speaking to Sir Keir Starmer about the conflict, his concerns, and what should happen next.
If the people of Iran rose up against the regime there, would you welcome that?
Well, look, I'm not going to get into what the people of Iran should do. I've been really clear. I'm very concerned about the nuclear program that Iran is developing. That's a unanimous position in the G7.
But maybe the only way around that is a different regime.
Israel is obviously threatened, and I've been very clear about Israel's right to self-defense. This is a conflict which could very well escalate, which would have implications for the region, implications almost undoubtedly for Gaza and obviously for the economy.
How does it resolve itself? There is growing talk in the region about people rising up against the regime. People want to know what your instincts are about the long-term solution here to bring a peaceful solution.
Well, I'm no supporter of the regime in Iran.
So if the people there rose up against it, you'd welcome that?
It's not for me as the UK Prime Minister to start encouraging people in relation to what they might do at home. My absolute focus is on the need to de-escalate this.
How worried are you about the economic impact of the conflict back home on people's bills?
Well, I'm always concerned about the impact of international issues back on people back at home.
Yet another shock.
Well, you saw with Ukraine the direct impact it had on energy bills and on the cost of living. Equally, with this conflict with Israel and Iran, you can see the effect it's having on the economy, particularly the price of energy.
And you fear that sort of knock-on for people?
Well, of course I do.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that impact on the lives of people in the United Kingdom. It's among the reasons that I spend a good chunk of my time working at the international level to try to bring about a resolution to de-escalate the situation, because at a time of conflict globally, there is always going to be an impact domestically, and my job is to insulate and safeguard and mitigate that risk to everybody watching this, everybody across the United Kingdom.
So Keir Starmer talking to our political editor, Chris Mason. Well, let's speak now to our Middle East correspondent, Lucy Williamson, who is in Tel Aviv. And what is the situation there tonight? Are the missile attacks from Iran continuing?
Well, the missile attacks have continued all through last night and all through today, the last one just a couple of hours ago. But Israel's army is making the point that these barrages appear to be getting smaller, and they say that's proof that their strategy of targeting Iran's launchers is working. Meanwhile, tonight there's been speculation on Israeli television about whether the United States will get involved in the military offensive, and Israel's national security chief has come out tonight saying the war in Iran won't finish until the underground site at Fordow is attacked. That's the site that Israel is thought to have won American help for. Benjamin Netanyahu has been very careful to say this is a US decision, but he's clearly very keen to have US support amid questions about where this war is going next and how it will end.